All right, so this next option is option 2. And this is when the first spouse passes away, the deceased spouse's portion, or that first spouse's portion, is held in a separate trust. We call it, it can be called the marital trust, is a name that's commonly used for it. This particular trust is protected from creditors, insurance claims, bankruptcy. There's also a mandatory prenuptial agreement that is actually embedded in the trust that says if my spouse gets remarried, then they need to enter into a prenuptial agreement or they lose access to this trust money. So also, this is a very popular kind of trust for those that want to make sure that even if they pass away, their half of the marital assets will only go to the beneficiaries that they appoint or they choose before they pass away. So typically, those are the children of the couple. This is a really, really important option because the surviving spouse they can still use the deceased spouse's portion. Those assets are still available to them. Okay, it's not just splitting the assets in half and now they can only use their own half, the surviving spouse's half. They can still be used by the surviving spouse for health, education, maintenance, and support for their lifestyle, right? For paying the bills, food, health care, all of those important things. It just can't be given away or lost to a second spouse or to creditors, bankruptcy, insurance claims. So it gives a nice level of support. So that is the second option. If that asset protection is important to you, it's an additional $1,200 to do that drafting and to prepare that document. And also, just to make sure you're aware, there is, of course, administration upon the passing of the first spouse. That is how that mandatory split takes place. So that gives you kind of an overview. And of course, any questions that you have, please reach out to me when we are in your design meeting. We can answer those questions and see if this is the best fit for you. It really is something that is most commonly chosen by clients who have second spouses. So this is a second marriage, or they have assets that they want to have be protected, especially in the case of a loved one or the first spouse getting remarried, because that is something that we are seeing a lot of. My colleagues and I, as I'm watching my clients age, they are if you have a really strong, wonderful, loving marriage, it's very common for those individuals to want to remarry. But unfortunately, as we age, we don't always have the same level of cognition, and we can be taken advantage of, or we can tend to forget the relationships that we had earlier, and the promises that we made, to always make sure that the kids were taken care of. I've also seen situations where a younger individual has been married and it's not been under the best of circumstances, and the kids don't like this new spouse because they're not mom or they're not dad, so they stop coming over and they stop feeling welcome, and then the surviving spouse begins to feel like the only person that ever loved them was this new spouse, and so becomes very tempting to want to disinherit or to change estate planning. So this is really helpful to also guard against individuals who might marry for the money or the assets of the marriage. And so if there's a mandatory prenup, it just takes that responsibility and puts it in the trust and lets that trust be the bad guy, so that prenup becomes a mandatory conversation that takes place between two a surviving spouse and a future potential spouse. So we'll talk more about it if you have any questions.